You touched my tail. Now we have puppies. Wait, what? Jace nearly drops his coffee as the Vulpine woman beams proudly in the middle of the mess hall, tail wagging like a victory flag. If you enjoy sci-fi romance with chaos, comedy, and heart, make sure to subscribe. There's a new story every day. Metal hums softly through the Kestrel Ring's corridors. The great orbital station drifting above a newborn world wrapped in clouds. Jace Renan balances a mug of reheated synth coffee in one hand and a sparking power coupler in the other, muttering about faulty wiring and worse management. From somewhere inside the ductwork, clang, thump, yip. He sigh without looking up. Sarah, please tell me that noise isn't you again. A red-orange head pops out of the vent, for-tipped ears perked high, golden eyes bright. Good news, she announces, voice full of triumph. System fixed. Maybe explode later, but mostly fixed. Jay stares deadpan. Mostly she grins wide, tail flicking behind her. 85% stable. Maybe 80. He takes a sip of coffee. Fantastic, I'll make sure to stand near the 20% that's not. Sarah blinks, confused, then laughs anyway, delighted by a joke she probably didn't understand. As sparks fizzle overhead, the pair move down the corridor. One human, one foxwoman, bickering like it's just another day keeping the universe duct-taped together. The corridor lights flickered as they walked, painting Jace and Sarah, and stuttering strips of white and shadow. The faint hum of the orbital ring filled every pause between their footsteps. A background noise that had become so constant it felt like silence. Next time, Jace muttered, tightening the strap on his tool belt. Maybe tell me before you start rewiring the coolant feeds. Sarah patted beside him, hands clasped behind her back, tails swinging lazily with each step. But it was broken. It wasn't. She tilted her head. Was not working. It was working until you stuck your tail in the fan housing. Her ears perked, indignant. Fan bit me first. He shot her a look, half exasperation, half amusement, and she gave a small huff, nose twitching as she looked away. The gesture was so ridiculously fox-like that Jace couldn't stop the grin that crept up before he hid it behind a sigh. They stopped outside the access hatch to Hydro Deck B. Jace scanned his wristband, and the hatch slid open with a soft hiss of pressurized air. Inside the deck's jungle of pipes, cables, and humming consoles greeted them with the usual low-frequency vibration that buzzed faintly against the skin. Sarah darted in first. She never walked anywhere, always darted, like her legs were powered by caffeine and curiosity alone. He followed her down the narrow aisle between cooling tanks, watching her bounce from one panel to the next. So, what exactly were you trying to fix? Pressure line was humming funny, she said, crouching beside a conduit. See, she pressed her ear to the metal. Sarah, everything hums on this deck. That's why they call it hydro resonance. It's supposed to. She blinked, considering that. Ben nodded sagely, still sounded suspicious. He couldn't help it. He laughed. The sound echoed through the chamber, deep and genuine. She looked up, delighted that she'd gotten that reaction, her tail wagging unconsciously. Okay, fine, he said. Let's check it out before it starts suspicious again. They worked side by side for a while, her handing him tools with more enthusiasm than accuracy. He caught a wrench mid-air as she tossed it like a javelin. Maybe try handing me the next one, he said. Human reflex. Good, she replied with an approving nod. Fast hands like Hunter, more like someone who doesn't want his skull cracked by a spanner. Sarah grinned, showing a sharp-toed smile that would have unnerved most people. Jace had long since stopped being most people. They managed to finish the inspection without anything exploding, a small miracle in itself. When they sealed the hatch again, Sarah wiped her hands on her jumpsuit and declared, "See fixed." "You mean still working despite your help?" Jace corrected. She puffed out her cheeks, tail flicking. "You know, trust me." "Oh, I trust you," he said, leaning on the railing beside her. "I just also trust entropy, bad luck, and the laws of physics, all of which you tend to annoy on a daily basis." Sarah squinted. "Annoy physics constantly." A beat of silence passed. Then she brightened. "Good means I win." Jace chuckled, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Sure you win." Later, in the mess hall, Sarah was perched on a stool across from him, staring suspiciously at the steaming mug he'd slid her way. "Try it," he said. "It's coffee." She sniffed it. "Smells like burned air. That's how you know it's working." She hesitated, took a cautious sip, then coughed, ears flattening. "Tastes like metal and sadness." "Exactly," he said with mockney. "Now you're officially human." Sarah smacked his arm with her tail. "You joke too much." "I'm not joking." She tilted her head, tail flicking against his chair again. "Human humor. Strange. Say one thing, mean another is like speaking backwards. It's called sarcasm." "Sarcasm." She repeated carefully, then nodded. Like when I say Jace very smart after you drop wrench on foot. He laughed. Exactly that. Sarah grinned proudly. Good, I sarcasm now. Yeah, he said, shaking his head. You're a natural. Her expression softened slightly, and she leaned forward on her elbows. You teach me human things good. Others don't have patience. Maybe they just don't want to be hit by flying tools. She giggled, a light musical sound that made a few nearby engineers glance over before smiling and returning to their meals. Sarah had that effect on people. Chaos, sure, but contagious in the best way. Then lowering her voice, she added, "You not scared of me?" He blinked, surprised. Should I be? Her ears twitched uncertainly. Some humans look at me like animal. You don't. You look like teammate. Jay's smile turned softer, the teasing edge fading. You are my teammate. She seemed to roll that word around in her head, tail curling behind her like a slow-moving flame. Teammate. I like that. He raised his mug in a small salute to surviving another day without a whole breach. She clinked her cup against his to not exploding. A faint hiss of pressure valve somewhere in the ceiling punctuated her words, followed by a distant bang. They froze. Jace groaned. Please tell me that wasn't your fix from earlier. Sarah blinked innocently. Define earlier. Sarah, she giggled. Okay, maybe 80% stable. 75 now. Jace stood, already grabbing his tool belt. Come on, let's go save the station again. She hopped up beside him, tail wagging eagerly. Adventure time, he muttered as they jogged toward the exit. Why do I feel like every time I work with you, I lose a year off my life? Sarah grinned up at him. Because I make life exciting. He couldn't argue with that. Hydro-X pressure alarms turned out to be nothing more than Sarah's minor calibration error. At least that's what Jace wrote in the report. He didn't have the patience to explain that minor meant one more loose wire and the bay would have vented its oxygen into the void. The commander gave him a tired look and waved him off. When he got back to the workshop, Sarah was perched on his workbench, legs swinging, tails swinging in perfect rhythm to some beat only she could hear. She'd stolen his datapad again. Sarah. She looked up, grinning guilty. I learn English better, see? She tapped the screen where she'd opened a list titled Common Human Sayings. He raised a brow. Oh no. She read aloud, slow and careful. Kick the bucket means die. Very strange. Humans have bad imagination. Jace leaned against the wall, folding his arms. You're not wrong, she continued. Break a leg means good luck, but also sounds like injury. You humans confusing on purpose. Pretty much. Ah, she said, triumphant. Piece of cake means easy. She puffed out her chest. I am learning. He smirked. You're getting there. Yeah. Then without warning, she kicked a small bucket sitting under the workbench. Now I practice idiom. The clang echoed across the bay. Jay winced. Please don't practice that one. Sarah gave him a look of pure mischief. You say not enough exercise. Now I exercise idioms. He laughed despite himself. You're unbelievable. Her tail flicked happily. Thank you. He rubbed his face. That wasn't never mind. They worked through the afternoon recalibrating power conduits. Every few minutes she tested out another idiom. Don't push my buttons, he warned as she reached for a live control pad. She stopped, blinked, then began pressing every single button in reach. Sarah, what you say? Push buttons. I said don't! He lunged to stop her as the whole panel chirked angrily, lights flashing red. She squeaked, ducking behind him. System angry. You come, he sighed, pulling up the override command. I'm going to start charging you for every heart attack you cause. She peeked over his shoulder, wide-eyed. How much human heart attack cost? He couldn't help but laugh again. A lot more than you can afford. Later, they took a break in the hangar observation bay, a massive window of reinforced crystal showing the planet below, golden blue under the afternoon sun. Sarah leaned close to the glass, nose almost touching it, tail swishing like a cat tracking birds. Pretty, she murmured. Your world or mine? Neither, Jace said, settling beside her on the floor. Brand new one. Terraformed just last year. She turned, ears perked. Then maybe ours. He looked at her a little caught off guard. Yeah, he said after a pause. Maybe ours. For a moment, the noise of machinery faded. The hum of the station. The flicker of light on glass. All distant. Her reflection smiled back at him, a blur of orange and gold. Then, predictably, she ruined the silence. You have food? Jace snorted. Romantic moments over, huh? Food is romantic, she insisted. On my world, we share meal to show trust. And you have dessert rations hidden under table in workshop. He blinked. How do you wait? Did you sniff them out? Her grin was all teeth. Maybe, he groaned. You are incurable. Big word, she teased, stretching her arms over her head. Means what? Means you caused trouble, and I can't stay mad about it. She smirked. Then good word. That evening, Jace was halfway through a diagnostic when a soft clang overhead made him glance up. Sarah, if that's you, in the vents again. Not in vents? Her voice echoed from somewhere above. Just near vents. That's not comforting. He climbed the ladder to the catwalk, only to find her hanging upside down from a safety harness she'd clipped wrong, tails swinging like a furry pendulum. Help, she said weakly. Jace rubbed his temples. Why do I even ask? He unlatched her harness and caught her before she could hit the deck, landing awkwardly with her in his arms. For half a second, either moved. Her ears flicked forward, gold eyes wide, a smile creeping over her face. Human blush again. I'm not, he began, but she poked his cheek. Yes, Red, see? He set her down quickly, trying to look busy with the harness. You really have no sense of personal space, do you? Space big, plenty for both of us. That's not what that means. She tilted her head, considering that. Then you teach me meaning later, he exhaled through a laugh. You really don't stop, do you? Nope, she said brightly, popping the pea. A soft alert pinged on Jace's wristband. Shift over. He stretched, groaning. All right, that's enough chaos for one day. Sarah bounced to her feet, tail wagging. Tomorrow, more chaos. Please don't make that a promise. Too late. She sang, darting ahead of him toward the exit. Chaos is friendship. He shook his head, but couldn't hide his grin. Somehow, her madness made the endless hum of the station feel a little less mechanical, like the metal had a heartbeat. As they walked back toward crew quarters, she fell into step beside him. You smile more now, she said. Do I? Yes, when we met, you frown all time. Now only sometimes. He laughed softly. Guess you're contagious, she beamed. Good, then you infected. He nearly choked. That's not never mind. Yeah, guess I am. They passed through a maintenance hatch and into the warm light of the habitation ring, the sound of her laughter echoing behind them. The next week brought the Intercultural Exchange Fair, which in theory was supposed to promote harmony between species. In practice, it was an excuse for everyone to dress in weird clothes, eat too much, and avoid work. The hangar had been converted into a makeshift bazaar, every booth glowing with holographic banners and foreign aromas. Someone was selling fried protein cubes beside a stand where blue-kin traders played alien folk music through an amplifier made from spare ship parts. Jace leaned on the railing above it all, mug of synth coffee in hand. He spotted a familiar flash of orange weaving through the crowd like a comet. Sarah, she was wearing her formal station jumpsuit, though formal was generous. The sleeves were rolled to her elbows, and a decorative belt of crimson cloth was tied around her waist, her tail flicking proudly behind her. She was radiant, confident, and clearly up to something. When she noticed him, she waved enthusiastically. Jace, come, I sign you up for games. He blinked. What kind of games? Volpine Challenge tests balance, coordination, and charm, she said, tail wagging dangerously. You have at least one of those. Yes, he sighed. I'm regretting this already. But she grabbed his sleeve anyway, tugging him toward a circular platform outlined by glowing rings. A few other Volpine crew members were already participating, balancing on narrow beams while tossing bright ribbons at each other in some ritualistic chaos. Sarah explained proudly. Game is simple. Keep your balance. Keep your tail high. Don't fall. I don't even have a tail. She grinned. Then you already losing. He groaned as she handed him a weighted ribbon. Fine. But if I break my neck, you're filling out the report. Deal. A whistle sounded, and the game began. Sarah darted and spun with impossible grace, tail flashing like a flame as she twirled past him. Jace, meanwhile, struggled to stay upright, slipping every time she laughed, usually at him. The crowd roared encouragement. Human wobbly, she teased mid-spin. Human is reconsidering his life choices. She laughed, leaping onto his beam with feline agility. Their ribbons tangled in mid-air. Jace caught her by the waist just before they toppled off. The crowd hooped. Sarah's ears flushed red as she blinked up at him, still held tight against his chest. Ah, you catch me. Yeah, he said, trying not to sound too flustered. You're welcome, she smiled slightly. On my world, catching means you interested. He chuckled. On mine, it means I don't want to get crushed. Close enough, she said cheerfully, brushing his chest before hopping down. Later that evening, the fair spilled into the mess hall, the air thick with chatter and music. Jace nursed his drink at a table near the window, while Sarah enthusiastically tried human food for the first time. She bit into a hot dog, chewed thoughtfully, then frowned. Why human food look like tube but tastes like regret? He snorted. Because that's the traditional flavor. Traditional sadness, Exactly. She looked at him over her drink, eyes bright. You make fun, but you smile too. You like being with me. Can't deny that. He said, You're the only person I know who can turn fixing a pipe into a full-blown comedy show. She tilted her head. Comedy, funny, amusing, she considered it. Then yes, I like making you comedy. He grinned. Close enough. At some point in the night, Sarah brought out a small set of colourful ribbons and insisted he try one of their games again. Tail ribbon exchange, she explained. Symbol of trust, he raised an eyebrow. You sure I'm qualified for this level of cultural diplomacy? You survived lunch with me. You ready? He shrugged, holding the ribbon awkwardly. All right, what do I do? She leaned close, smiling mischievously. You tie on tail. I tie on yours. Jay blinked. I don't have them belt loop. Close enough, she said, looping her ribbon through his uniform and tying a neat knot. She giggled softly, proud of her handiwork. Now we bonded for game. When I move, you follow. He smirked. That's usually how this goes. For the next several minutes, the two of them moved in sync through the open deck. Part dance, part mock battle. Sarah spinning and laughing. Jace trying to keep up while pretending to be unimpressed. The ribbon stretched between them like a thread of light, glowing faintly with static charge. Then it happened. Her tail brushed against his arm, just a flick, casual and unthinking. He instinctively reached out to steady it, fingers brushing the base where ferment skin. She froze mid-laugh. The music faded. Jace said, realizing what he'd done. Sorry, I didn't. Sarah's eyes were wide, pupils dilated. Her voice came soft, steady. You touched tail. Yeah, I was just trying to. That is claim, she said simply. He blinked. Claim. She nodded. Serious now. In Vulpine Bond customs, tail touches promise. You choose me. Jay stared. Sarah. I swear I didn't. She smiled slowly, tail curling behind her. Okay, I accept. He froze halfway between protest and disbelief. You what? She reached up, patting his chest affectionately. You brave human, I proud. And with that, she turned and sauntered off, leaving him standing alone under the glow of festival lanterns, utterly bewildered. Behind him, a nearby technician muttered, Congrats, man. Didn't know you were into interspecies engagements. Jace groaned into his drink. Oh no. The next morning, Sarah was waiting outside his quarters. Tail puffed and ears perked. Good morning, bondmate, she chirped. Jace squinted, rubbing his eyes. Oh, we're really doing this, huh? She beamed. Yes, I make breakfast. He hesitated. Is it edible? 80%. That was how Jay Renan learned the first rule of interspecies relationships. Never underestimate how quickly a simple misunderstanding can spiral into chaos. By mid-morning, the rumor had traveled faster than any data packet in the station's network. Everywhere Jace went, people grinned, nudged, or whispered, just loud enough for him to hear. Congratulations, someone called as he passed the cafeteria line. Didn't know you were the romantic type, Renan. Yeah, I'm really not, he muttered, clutching his tray. When he sat down, Sarah appeared beside him out of nowhere, tail curling possessively around the leg of his chair. She dropped a steaming plate in front of him, an alarming mix of eggs, noodles, and something that still twitched faintly. Breakfast for Bon Mate, she declared proudly. He eyed it wearily. Sarah, what is that food? Good for strength and stamina, she said with a wink that sent the table across from them into snickers. Jasich groaned, lowering his voice. You know everyone's talking right about us. Of course, she said brightly. We famous now. That's not a good thing. Why not? You touched tail. That means serious. Others respect serious bond. Sarah, he said gently, trying to find the right words. In human culture, touching someone's tail, if they had one, isn't really a big deal. She frowned. Then humans have no romance. I wouldn't go that far. Her ears perked skeptically. Then what means bond for you? Jace opened his mouth, realized he had no diplomatic way to explain human dating, and closed it again. It's complicated. Complicated is human word for confused. She said with mock seriousness. He sighed. You're not wrong. Later that day, they were assigned to check the outer solar arrays. It was a standard EVA job, routine, tedious, and just dangerous enough to keep him awake. Sarah loved it. She bounded through the airlock, her tether clipping into place with a satisfying click. Feels like flying, she exclaimed as they drifted out into the dark. The planet's surface gleamed far below, streaks of gold and ocean blues spinning beneath them. Careful, Jassis warned. If you break anything out here, I can't just duct tape it back together. She spun slowly, tail waving in the zero-gravity wind. You always say duct tape solve everything. Yeah, but space isn't everything. Then I make new saying, she said, tapping her helmet. Love and duct tape fix universe, Jace chuckled into his calm. That one's going on a t-shirt. They worked in companionable silence for a while, sealing microfractures and recalibrating panels. Every few minutes, Sarah hummed to herself, a lulling tune from her world that somehow managed to sound both mournful and mischievous. When they finished, she floated close, bumping gently against his shoulder. Good teamwork, she said, her voice soft through the radio. We move, same. Thank one unit or one bad sitcom, he replied. She tilted her head inside the helmet. Sitcom? Never mind. You wouldn't like it. Her laughter crackled through the channel. I like everything with you, he smiled, even though she couldn't see it. After they returned, Jacis tried again to reason with her. He cornered her in the maintenance bay where she was cleaning her suit. Okay, let's go over this one more time. I didn't mean to claim you. She blinked. But you did. I didn't know it meant anything. She considered that for a long moment, ears flicking in thought. Then she smiled slightly. So, you touched Tail by accident? Yes! Then accident lucky for me, she said, Tail flicking happily. He rubbed his temples. You're impossible. Maybe, she said, stepping closer, her expression softening. But you still not say you regret, Jace paused. He hadn't really thought about it like that. Did he regret it? She was loud, chaotic, constantly dismantling things she shouldn't. But she was also bright, funny, and full of life in a way few people out here were. No, he said finally, voice quieter. I don't regret it. Sarah's ears perked high. Then good. Claim stands. Sarah, too late, she interrupted, tapping his chest with a grin. Pap work already spreading, he groaned. Please tell me you're joking. Mostly. That evening, they ended up in the rec lounge, sitting side by side on one of the long couches facing the viewport. A field of stars stretched out before them, the rings hum blending with the quiet murmur of background conversation. Sarah rested her chin on her knees, tail curling lazily around her legs. You like stars? She asked. They're fine. Look better when you're not thinking about how far away they are. Far is good, she said softly. Means we have more to chase. He glanced at her, surprised at the sudden poetry. You really are something else? She tilted her head. Something good? Something dangerous? She gasped dramatically. You think I dangerous? He smirked. To my sanity? Absolutely. She grinned, bumping his shoulder with hers. Then I do job well. They fell into easy silence again, watching the stars drift past. Somewhere deep inside, Jace felt a strange warmth curling through the quiet, a comfort that had nothing to do with the artificial temperature controls. When she finally spoke again, it was quieter, more hesitant. You not scared of what? Everyone talking, saying, we together. You not angry? He shook his head. Nah, I've been called worse things than lucky. Her smile returned bright and genuine. Then I lucky too. She leaned her head gently against his shoulder, and he didn't move away. Of course, the peace didn't last long. The next morning, the maintenance network went haywire, half the external sensors showing false readings. Jay sprinted down the corridor, Sarah right on his heels. Not my fault, she shouted preemptively. I didn't say it was. You thinking it loud? He almost laughed as they burst into the control room, sparks flying from an overloaded console. She dove under the panel before he could stop her, tail sticking out as wires snapped and lights flickered. Sarah, wait. Fixing, she declared from under the console. Sarah, you don't even know what. A loud pop interrupted him, followed by a puff of smoke and a muffled, he sighed. You okay? Fine. Console bite me, but I bite back. Please don't bite the electronics. Moments later, the system stabilized. She popped up, holding a scorched cable triumphantly. See? Fixed again. He couldn't stop smiling. You're going to be the death of me. She tilted her head, ears flicking. Then I make sure at nice death. Jace chuckled, shaking his head as he knelt beside her to inspect the repair. She smelled faintly of static and something warm, like burnt sugar and spice. He realized he didn't actually mind the idea of people thinking they were a pair. As they cleaned up the last of the mess, Sarah stretched, tail brushing his side again. He didn't move away this time. See, she said teasingly. You touched tail again. You learning? He rolled his eyes, fighting a grin. I'm doomed. Doomed and claimed, she said cheerfully. Good combination. He laughed quietly. Your trouble. You know that. Yes, she said, smiling like it was a compliment. But I'm your trouble. And for once, Jace didn't argue. Jace should have known something was wrong the moment the intercom crackled to life at 7 in the morning. Attention crew, came Sarah's unmistakable voice. High, cheerful, far too confident for this hour. Everyone, meet in Messel. Big news. He was halfway through putting on his jacket when he froze. Oh no. By the time he arrived, nearly the entire shift crew had gathered. Tables were pushed aside, coffee machines were hissing, and half the staff were whispering like gossip-hungry hyenas. In the middle of it all stood Sarah, tail arched, ears perked, practically glowing with excitement. When she saw him, she clapped her hands. "There you are, Jace. Come." He gave her a worried look as he walked forward, every eye following him. "Sarah, what exactly is going on?" "Announcement," she said, beaming. "Very important." The commander, a gay-haired woman who looked one more incident away from retirement, rubbed her temples. "Sarah, this better not be another science experiment." "No experiment." "Good news," Sarah announced, voice carrying across the room. "As of yesterday, Jace, Renan and I." She paused dramatically, tail swishing. "Our official bondmates." There was a beat of stunned silence. Then someone dropped a spoon. Jace blinked. "Wait, what?" Sarah turned to him, absolutely radiant. "And even better news. We are going to have puppies." The room erupted. Coffee sprayed. Laughter roared through the hall. Someone actually clapped. Jace just stood there staring, mouth slightly open as a dozen crew members crowded closer. "Congratulations, Renat," shouted one of the mechanics. "Didn't think you had it in you," said another, grinning. Someone slapped him on the back so hard he nearly choked. "Lucky guy." Sarah giggled proudly at all the attention, clearly mistaking their laughter for joy. "Yes, very lucky." He touched tail. "Very brave, very bold." Jace rubbed his face with both hands, trying to sink into the floor. "Oh my God." The commander looked like she wanted to evaporate on the spot. "Bondmates, puppies," she repeated slowly. Sarah nodded earnestly. "Yes, tail touch means claim. Claim means bond. Bond means family. Simple." A wave of laughter rippled again, and Jace felt his ears burning. One of the engineers called out. "So when's the ceremony, Jace?" He gave a helpless shrug. "Apparently yesterday I missed it." Sarah clapped him on the shoulder proudly. "He modest pretends not know, but he very gentle, very how humans say romantic." Jace choked on air. "Sarah." She turned to the crowd, completely oblivious to his mortification. "You all come to visit when Puppy's born." Yes, many tails, cute faces. That did it. Someone actually fell off a chair laughing. Even the commander gave up trying to restore order, muttering something about needing stronger coffee. As she left, Jace exhaled, half laughing now himself because resisting was pointless. He looked at Sarah, who stood there beaming with pride, utterly certain that this was the best news anyone had ever heard. "All right," he said finally, rubbing the back of his neck. "Guess the cat's out of the bag." Sarah frowned slightly, confused. "What cat? We have Fox." He chuckled weakly. "It's a saying. Means everyone knows now." "Good," she said brightly, tail wagging. "I want them to know." Jace glanced around at the gathered crew, still snickering and whispering. "Well, they definitely know." "Then success." One of the medics leaned over, smirking. "So, Jace, how exactly does that work? Asking for science. Don't you have a pulse check to run or something?" He snapped. Sarah blinked innocently. "Work? We fix systems together. We eat together. We sleep." "Not that part." Jace interrupted quickly, face turning scarlet as the laughter doubled. Sarah looked around, utterly unbothered, basking in the noise like it was applause. He watched her, so proud, so radiant, and the embarrassment softened into something else, something warm. She wasn't trying to humiliate him. She was honored. This was her way of shouting it to the stars. And for all her chaos, all her misunderstandings, she deserved that pride. So he straightened, forced a grin, and wrapped an arm loosely around her shoulders. "Yeah," he said loud enough for everyone to hear. "Guess it's official then." The hall exploded with cheers. Sarah's tail wagged so fast it was a blur. She turned to look up at him, eyes bright with disbelief. "You mean it?" "Sure," he said with a laugh. "Why not? Can't argue with a woman who announces it to the entire station." She squealed, throwing her arms around his waist in a hug so sudden it nearly knocked him over. "You make me happiest fox on ship." "Glad to be of service," he said, voice muffled against her hair. Someone called out, "Hey, Renan, better start planning for daycare." "Ha ha ha," Jace smuttered, rolling his eyes. The crowd began to drift out, still laughing and congratulating him. Sarah stayed close, tail swaying proudly, face glowing with triumph. When the room finally cleared, she turned to him with a small, mischievous smile. "You not angry?" she asked quietly. He looked down at her, her ears twitching nervously for the first time that morning. "No," he said softly. "Can't say I am." Her smile bloomed again, brilliant and relieved. Good, because now everyone know you mine. He chuckled, shaking his head. Yes, Sarah, I guess I am. She nodded firmly, as if the universe had just been said right. Then we go eat. Bondmates must keep energy for puppies. Jace groaned, but couldn't stop grinning. Sure. Let's feed the whole litter while we're at it. Good idea, she said brightly, missing the sarcasm entirely. He followed her toward the galley, laughter still echoing from the halls, and thought, not for the first time, that she might actually drive him insane. And somehow he didn't mind one bit. By mid-afternoon, the laughter had died down, but the paperwork had begun. A summon pinged on Jace's wristband. Report to command. Subject. Interspecies relationship disclosure. He groaned. Sarah, what did you do? She tilted her head, tails swaying innocently. Told truth. Sarah, you announced we're having puppies on the recording system. Good. Saves time for forms. Commander Yara was waiting behind her desk when they arrived. Expression caught between disbelief and exhaustion. The blinds were drawn, the overhead lights humming faintly. Sit, she said flatly. They sat. She tapped her datapad. So, either I'm misreading this, or my station just became the first orbital platform to host an intersized domestic partnership. Sarah beamed. Yes, history, Jace muttered under his breath. Or a sitcom. The commander ignored him. As per Alliance policy, interspecies pairings require consent forms, cultural compatibility documentation. And she scrolled grimly. Health screenings. Mr. Renan, you're listed as primary human partner. Jace blinked. Wait, listed? By who? By Miss Sarah. Yara said deadpan. She filed everything herself. Impressive speed, actually. Sarah lifted her chin proudly. Efficient. Jace turned to her, jaw-dropping. You filled out relationship paperwork. She nodded. Yes. Section be very confusing, but I guess answers. The commander pinched the bridge of her nose. Mr. Renan, do you object to being registered as bonded? Jace hesitated. He could have said no. Could have laughed it off, clarified the misunderstanding, walked out clean. But then he saw Sarah sitting there, tail still, hands clasped nervously on her knees. She looked proud, but underneath that, uncertain, like she was waiting for him to deny her in front of everyone. He sighed, shoulders sinking. No, Commander. I don't object. Yara blinked, surprised. You're serious? Seems easier than explaining it, he said dryly. And well, she's not the worst company. Sarah's ears perked, eyes shining. He likes my company. The commander handed them each a datapad. Fine. Sign here, both of you. And please keep your personal developments off the public broadcast system from now on. Yes, ma'am, Jay said. Sarah cheerfully saluted. Yes, boss human lady. 10 minutes later, they stepped out into the corridor. Official alliance approved. Bondmates. According to the database, Sarah was practically skipping, tail flicking in delight. Now we legal couple. Jace rubbed his temples. Great. That'll look fantastic on my record. She stopped, turned to him, and smiled so softly it disarmed him completely. You didn't have to say yes. He shrugged, grinning faintly. Yeah, well, you seem pretty happy about it. Her ears twitched. I am you good human, brave, kind, little dumb sometimes. Thanks. She slipped her arm through his tail, brushing his leg. Now you mind by law? No takebacks. He laughed quietly. Guess I walked right into that one. Walked? No, claimed. He groaned, but couldn't hide the smile spreading across his face. 2 days later, Command assigned them to a joint maintenance mission, planet-side, probably to get them off the station until the gossip died down. The drop shuttle rattled as it descended through the atmosphere. Sarah pressed her face to the viewport, tail quivering with excitement. So much green, real air smell. Yeah, Jace said, tightening a strap. Try not to startle the local wildlife. We don't need another diplomatic incident. I behave, she promised, then added with a grin. Mostly. They landed in a field of silver grass, the wind rippling around them like waves. Their task was simple. Replace a power relay on an old terraforming beacon. Simple until Sarah found a loose cable. Don't, Jace began. Already fixing. A spark leapt, followed by a small explosion. The beacon winded and powered down entirely. Smoke curled into the breeze. He groaned. You just turned off an entire sector of the grid. She coughed sod on her nose. Okay, small mistake. You fix tools. Despite everything. He laughed because honestly he missed this chaos. Hours later, as the sun sank below the horizon, they sat together beside the humming beacon, watching it pulse steadily again. The air smelled like rain and burnt wire. Sarah leaned her head on his shoulder, sighing contentedly. You always fix what I break. Someone has to, he said with a smile. She looked up at him, eyes warm in the fading light. You good bomb, mate. I think I keep you, he chuckled softly. Guess I'm lucky you're not trading me in. Sarah giggled, curling her tail around his leg. Never. You mine now and you still owe me dinner. Oh, do I? Yes. Bondmates share everything, even bad cooking. He laughed quietly, watching the twin moons rise. The world below them hummed with new life, and somehow so did he. The shuttle touched down back on Kestrel Ring just before dawn. The corridors were quiet, the air still carrying that faint tang of recycled coolness. Jay stretched as they stepped through Deccanum, rolling his shoulders. Not bad, he said. Only one explosion, 2 near misses, and a mandatory ethics briefing in our future. I'd call that progress. Sarah bounced beside him, tail flicking. Success. No one died and power fixed. We make good team, huh? He said, smirking. That what we're calling it, Bond team. She corrected proudly. Official now. I even get email from command saying congratulations. Jace groaned. They emailed congratulations. Yes, with cute heart emoji. He rubbed his face. This station's lost its mind. They walked in silence for a bit. The stars outside drifted lazily past the viewing ports, pale light catching in Sarah's hair. She looked almost peaceful, tail swaying softly behind her. You know, Jace said finally, I read up on your culture last night. About the tail thing? Her ears perked a little worry. Oh, he nodded. Didn't realize it meant that much. It's a serious promise. Sarah studied him, eyes curious. You angry I trick you into promise? He shook his head slowly. Nah, I think I'm okay with it. She blinked, surprised, then smiled so wide her fangs showed. Then we stay promised. He chuckled, leaning back against the wall. Yeah, guess we do. She reached up, brushing his sleeve. You good to me, Jay Renan? You make me laugh, fix my mess, teach me sarcasm. That is love language. Yes, he grinned. Pretty close. They stood together in the corridor, quiet except for the hum of the ship. The lights dimmed for shift change, wrapping them in soft shadow. Sarah's tail brushed against his arm. Gentle this time. Deliberate. He didn't move away. Welcome home, bondmate, she whispered. Jace smiled. Good to be home. A few days passed, and life aboard Kestrel Ring gradually drifted back toward its usual rhythm. If you ignored the snickers that followed Jace every time he walked through the engineering bay, the rumour mill had quieted, though Sarah's proud bondmate status still appeared on the shared crew manifest. No one dared delete it. Jace found himself in the mess hall early one morning nursing a mug of too hot coffee while reviewing system diagnostics. The soft hiss of the drink dispensers and the distant hum of the ring were the only sounds. Peaceful. Finally, peaceful. Then Sarah's ears appeared over the table's edge. Good morning, human, she chirked, sliding into the seat across from him. Her fur-tipped tail swished lazily, brushing the chair legs. He gave her a tired smile. Morning, Sarah. You drink same thing every day, she said, peering at his cup. Still smells like sadness. That's because it is sadness, liquid form. She giggled. You very funny in morning. Maybe still half asleep, he shrugged. Maybe. Sarah leaned forward, chin in her hands, studying him with a mischievous glint. So you learn more about Vulpine bonds? Yes. He looked up from his data pad. Yeah, I did. And you understand tail touch now? She pressed. He chuckled softly. I do. It's important. I get that now. She beamed proud and glowing, her ears flicking like golden pennants. Good, because she paused, brow furrowing as if confirming something in her head. Now I can touch your tail. Yes. Jace froze mid-sip. There was a tiny moment of silence. Then he spat coffee all over the table. What? He coughed, wiping his mouth, eyes wide. Sarah blinked, confused by his reaction, but undeterred. You said bondmates share everything. So now I can touch your tail too, he groaned, sinking into his chair. Sarah, humans don't have tails. She tilted her head, ears perking, entirely serious. Yes, you do. I figure it out. Jace blinked. You what? She smiled triumphantly, tapping the table with a finger. You keep it hidden under clothing. Very clever. I notice it move when you bend over or stretch. Half the mess hall turned to stare, trying and failing not to laugh. Jace felt his soul leave his body. Sarah, that's not, as she interrupted proudly, holding up a finger. And when you sleep, you roll on it. Must be small tail, but still tail. That why you balance so well. The laughter around them finally broke loose. Engineers were wheezing. Someone slapped the table. Even the commander was covering her mouth behind a cup of tea in the corner. Jace groaned, burying his face in his hands. Please tell me you're joking. She blinked innocently. No joke. I respect your tiny hidden tail. It's cute. That did it. The entire mess hall erupted in howls. Jace could only laugh at this point, red-faced but unable to stay annoyed. You are impossible. You know that? Sarah grinned proudly, tail wagging. Yes, but I am your impossible. He shook his head, laughing through his embarrassment. You really figured it all out, huh? Yes, she said, looking smug. Now we equal. Both have tails, both claimed. Very romantic. He leaned forward, still chuckling, and met her eyes. You're unbelievable. She smiled, utterly radiant. That mean you love me? He exhaled, warmth rising in his chest. Yeah, maybe it does. Sarah's tail thumped happily against the chair leg, earning another round of laughter from the nearby crew. She sat back, satisfied, ears twitching. I knew you would admit it eventually. Coffee's ruined, Jace muttered, glancing down at the mess on the table. Jace just watched her, grinning despite himself as her tail swayed in slow, content arcs behind her. Somewhere in the distance, the hum of the station felt a little softer, warmer even. If this was what claimed felt like, he decided he could live with it. Thanks for watching. If Sarah and Jace made you smile, hit subscribe and join us for the next adventure. More humans, more aliens, and definitely more misunderstandings.